So, welcome back, folks. We are in our third episode of Hustlemode, and we're grateful that you took time out of your busy day to join us here today or tonight. As we enter into this third episode of Hustlemode, we wanted to make sure that we're taking a moment to provide our audience with a little bit of more contextual, valuable information tonight. Jay, I know you and I have had several conversations as of late, and some of our friends and colleagues have been chatting as far as what they can do with all this free time of theirs, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, we can't go to clubs, we can't go out to dinner. Well, very few.
Well, you should have said bars. Clubs.
Yeah.
You're dating yourself a little bit there. Say
Well,
bars. That's what we do. That's our age group. Bars, not
okay.
clubs.
Speak for yourself. So
yeah. All right, man. Sorry, my bad.
We can't go out. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And there's not much that we can do. But for the most part, there is something that we all can do if you enjoy it, right? And
indeed, yeah.
There's some quote unquote serial entrepreneurs out there that like to start businesses or see a void in the marketplace in order for them to sort of introduce a new service and or product or offering.
Or both. Yeah.
So I think it's a great topic that you suggested for us tonight, and that's sort of
I'm excited about it. I'm passionate about the idea because, as I was mentioning before, starting a business is they used to say being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart, and there are some aspects of it that you really need a tough, thick skin for. But in today's marketplace, with the fact that we have the internet, we have access to all this information, and we can really talk to experts whenever we need to, and just really get more information than we ever possibly could, make starting a business a lot less daunting than maybe it was even 10 years ago, when entrepreneurship wasn't thought of as a career, right? If you go back, Neil, to, what do you want to be when you grow up? Rarely does anybody use the word entrepreneur. Like I remember taking a course in grade 11, I don't want to date myself, but a long time ago in grade 11, and it was called entrepreneurship. I'm like, the first time I've ever heard the word, right? You have business owners and, franchisee and all that stuff. I knew those words, but entrepreneur was the first time I heard it. But now entrepreneur is in our vernacular. It's a common word that you hear people drop as a profession. Like you ask a kid, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to run my own business. I want to be an entrepreneur. Cool. Like people want to be doctors, lawyers, all these other great things. An entrepreneur is now on the list, welcome. So with that, I wanted to go down an overview of some of the things that I think will help our viewers if they're looking to start a business. Does that sound good?
That's fantastic.
All right.
Actually, you know what? Let's just mix it up. I'm going to say no. Let's talk about
pens. Pens, Apple pencils. Okay, so let's get into the practical aspect of this. So what I want to do is talk through some of the notes I have and some of the things that I think will be valuable for our audience to digest about starting your own business. Now, when you're looking at a business, it's very easy to say, okay, well, I want to start a business. Everybody wants to start a business. You got to understand the motivation. Why are you doing it? Well, you're doing it generally to solve a problem. So whether it's something that you see in the marketplace, or there's an opportunity that you've realized, or there's even a passion that you have that you say, you know what, I really love photography. It's my jam. It's something I love doing. So why not parlay that into something where I can start to make some money from it? So those gig-related jobs now are gig-related opportunities where you can turn that passion that you have for photography or filmmaking or graphic design into an actual career. Like you can actually flip that around because there's websites that you can post your content on where people can pay for. There's now a lot of photography sites that you can post your information on. So the internet's really changed the perception of how an artist or a person who probably couldn't monetize their work is able to do so. So, again, solving a problem, converting a passion into something that you feel the world has value in either having solved or the world has value in seeing more of what you're offering. So start with an idea. That's stage one. So once the idea is formed, what you want to do then is start to understand what your structure is going to be. Now, you have your idea. You've done a little research on whether it's a concept that has a lot of competition or a concept that can really gain a lot of market share, or a product that you know is something you can source overseas and bring into Canada. So that's another thing that we won't really get into. Thing about product, we'll talk more about service in this conversation, but we can talk about product too. Neil, if you got anything on the product side that you want to talk about, we can do that. So once you've built your idea, you're comfortable, you're confident, you kind of know what you want to do, then my idea next, and I got some notes here, is once your idea is formulated, you want to decide what your structure is going to be. So whether it's going to be a sole proprietor, so it's just you and you're starting a business, you're registering it, a corporate structure, or you're in a partnership or something to that effect where you have multiple people getting together. Now, I won't go into the real deep detail between the three different types of alignment, but just know that a corporation has a limited liability compared to a sole proprietor. Simple layman's terms, if you get sued as a corporation, the corporation gets sued and the corporation's assets are at risk. If you're a sole proprietor and someone sues you for any reason, your product's bad, your service gives somebody a rash, the cream that you're making in your basement gives somebody a really bad reaction, whatever it is,
The
if you
food
have a
that you're
limited,
delivering through Instagram, the
you,
side hustle that you have as far as, making some edible things and delivering it. And I'm being serious,
it's
bro.
legal. It's
No,
legal.
listen,
You just
hey,
need a license.
people are selling food through Instagram, okay, and delivering it, right? And
Oh,
they're not identifying if there's allergic reactions. Who's liable? What ends up happening if somebody eats something and
that's
they're
true.
allergic and you didn't identify what the ingredients were, right? Or
Yeah.
perhaps you forgot, right?
Yeah.
These are all serious issues. And, you and I are joking, but seriously,
Yeah.
that's why there's corporations. That's why there's regulations that the government has put in place in order to safeguard the public so that they're not going to be going down sort of the wrong route, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
next thing you know, it's just an IG account. So what ends up happening? They get ghosted. Next 2 weeks, there's another IG account with a different name, a different brand, a different service, right? But it's the same underlying offer. So, I'm not trying to put the fear into people, but there are some regulations and there's some legal issues that you need to sort of be mindful of.
Yeah, so that's part of the stack. So once you've determined your corporate structure, then you need to look at laws and regulations to determine whether you have certain ones you need to abide by. So again, great point, Neil. If you're in the food industry and you're providing food to the general public, you definitely need to take that into consideration. It's great to be a mom entrepreneur or a young entrepreneur, whatever the preneur is, to go down that road and be innovative and creative and try to make money from your craft, but you just definitely need to be careful. You need to have your ducks all lined up. You need to make sure that if there's any liability around what you're doing, that you have a good lens on that. And again, as you said, if there's any food related activities you're doing, make sure you're very deliberate on what you list as your ingredients and very deliberate on your distribution models, right?
Food,
Refrigeration,
right?
a lot
I
of
mean,
things.
skincare, medical,
Yeah.
any
Oh, yeah.
personal care products. Like, think about the liability there for somebody to have an allergic reaction or worse, get seriously harmed or injured by consumption or topographical application, right? Like, there's
Yep.
a whole bunch of red tape that you need to be mindful of, right? And the thing is, you don't know what you don't know until you actually go down that route, right?
Yep.
Going back to your point as far as the three types of businesses that you want to create,
Mhm.
if we were to list them again, so solopreneur, partnership, corporation, right?
Yes.
Or
Mhm.
sole proprietor, I should say. I wouldn't even bother with one and two, to be honest with you, right? I mean,
Yeah. For the
just
amount of
go through,
money it costs,
right?
Neil,
Like,
to do a incorporation, it's far better in the long run to be incorporated.
yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
and we'll get into resources a little bit later of how you can get it even cheaper if you go with some of the tools that are out in the marketplace.
Okay,
So,
sorry, I keep cutting you. So let's go back. So idea,
yep.
number two.
Number two is once you have your idea, you want to really look at the problem that you're looking to solve, right?
Okay,
So the
problem.
idea and the problem.
Mhm.
And then once you've decided that there's a problem that you need to solve, aside from market research, and that could kind of be in there as well. So knowing the problem, understanding the market that you're entering and some of the challenges in the market and opportunities in the market. So those can be one and the same. But then after you've done that, picking your structure. right? So you know the market, your idea is valid. And the last thing that I would say that goes with idea is validation of that idea. Like one of the things that a lot of great businesses are started around is started around a problem that you're looking to solve. But then when you take that problem to, your four closest advisors or people that you trust, and you try to explain it to them and they don't get it, then it becomes a little bit of a hard sell for others who you may go ask for money, or may ask for advice or mentorship in the future.
Hmm.
The one other thing that I
Interesting.
think is important that you mentioned, when you're talking about regulation and you're talking about protecting yourself, resources, like we'll get into a little bit of resources as we move forward, but there's tons out there. You're never in this life or in this entrepreneurial marketplace, you're never short of finding resources that can provide you with opportunity to learn, and resources that can provide you with protection in some cases to some of these pitfalls that you may overlook. So having access to resources now more so than ever is at your fingertips as an entrepreneur. When you want to learn about something new, you want to have a compliancy in place, or if it's something you just want to make sure that you're providing great value to. Okay, so those are the top. So the next one, after you've gotten all that stuff done, where you've validated your idea and you've done some of the other stuff, you want to look at what your structure is from a tools and operational perspective. So you have your incorporation, if that's the way you go. You've established your business idea as something that's valid, and you're starting to look at solving problems. So the key thing now is, how do you make your business official? And Neil, we'll get into announcing and promoting your business, and you can definitely own that part of it. But the conversation. But what I would recommend at that point is getting into looking at your banking situation, because you're a corporation now, so you need to have a financial setup. Your CRA, because we're talking from a Canadian lens, so how your CRA accounts are set up. Make sure you register for a business number. Some of these resources that we talk about towards the end, you'll see that they actually assist you with registering your business number. And then on top of that, if you're selling goods or services over $30,000 a year, then you need to register for HST. HST is a very important thing, because as a business owner, not only does it help with your sales and your taxation, but it also helps with your expenses and things that you can write off against your business's activities. Because when you look at HST dollars are right, you can write off HST paid against HST spent. So then there's a correlation there. So you actually will get a portion of what you spend in expenses, the HST, back depending on the expense. So it's a good opportunity to have an HST account, because you really get the benefit of it against your expenses that you incur in your business. So now that we have that structure, one of the things that I did when I was starting my business is before I even found a business name, going all the way back to the beginning, is I did a domain name search. Jumped on a good old GoDaddy and saw what names are similar to the one I want. Because when you officially register a corporation through Nuance in Canada, you have to go through a name search. So they will officially, as part of your articles of incorporation, they will go through a name search to make sure that there's no other corporations called, J. Smith and Sons or whatever you call yourself. So they'll do that validation. But the easiest way for you to do the validation is just do a very simple GoDaddy search to see if there's any domain names with the name that you're looking for. It may actually even shape what you call your company, because the domain name's available. Right. So there's that aspect that I recommend people to do, is take a look at the domain names that are available and just leverage that. And as part of that domain name registration, you're also going to look into what they also sell you email services. The most professional thing you can do when starting a business is to have a proper email address. You don't want to be janescookies@gmail.com. Well, you could be that, and Gmail is free, but if you just make a little small investment and invest in that domain name, Jane's Cookies, you could be jane@janescookies.com, which obviously looks a lot more professional than the reverse with Gmail at the end. So going back to that whole resources and tools conversation or comment, you have them all set up. You're going to get your domain name, your proper email address. You're also going to now start parlaying that into a website. So Neil, question for you.
Fine.
You did this recently, all these things.
I did. Thanks.
Tell our guests, tell our friends what your experience was going through the various steps? Because we talked about it. We went back and forth, and I gave you some suggestions. And what was your experience? Like, what was there any parts of it that came as a challenge? Was there any parts of it that you were like, this is way harder than it needs to be? Or was it smooth sailing all the way through to getting your website, which I think you did in like 72 hours, if not less, from the time you registered? So impart wisdom, my friend.
It was easy. It was very simple.
That's it. That's all you got.
That's it. Just do it.
All right, everybody, listen closely. Neil says it's simple. Start a business, and then that's all that matters.
That's it, man. Just do it. Yeah, it's interesting because I think the hardest part of the whole ordeal was the decision to actually just do.
Oh,
Yeah. So, like you said, you hammered out all the points, right? There's a number of different resources, and if we want to get into owner, for example, I'll let you lead that race. But we had spoke about a number of different solutions, and I woke up one morning and I said, okay, let's just do it. So we did it. Went down, registered, pretty straightforward, right? Take a closer look at, like you said, domains that were available and something that resonated with my brand and sort of my area of expertise, hashtag BizDevWizard. And from there, it was kind of like, okay, let's just set it up, right?
yeah.
Now, kind of these types of things on my end came a lot smoother as far as the execution of branding, name, logo, content creation, drafting up the information, identifying the services, so on and so forth. Because
Was that from experience, Neil, or would you say that
it's almost 30 years experience in that realm, right? So like those are
doing it for other clients?
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean those would be stumbling blocks for other people, right? Because they
Yeah.
don't have almost 30 years of marketing, digital marketing, business development experience. So, it's hard how to put those pieces together may be a stumbling block or a hesitation for someone, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I'm not saying it's perfect. It's always a work in progress, but I wasn't about to get hung up again on the mere fact of failing to launch because of perfection. I I,
Yeah.
I wanted to just get it out there
Yeah. I
and
hear you.
scratch it off my list. So what did I do? You and I had a conversation,
Mhm.
and I circled the date on the calendar, and I said, okay, by Friday of XYZ date, we're gonna have this business registered. And I gave myself by 4 p.m. on a Friday, everything was gonna
Mhm.
be done. So
Setting a
yeah,
deadline and a goal, right?
that was it, man. Because like, everything without doing that, what is it? Failure to plan to fail. But there's another one that says a plan without a goal without a plan is a wish, right?
Yep.
So just work backwards from that time of that discussion, right? And I just said, shit or get off the pot, right? So decided to do it. The
Yeah.
only stumbling that I had, to be honest with you, was just
Yeah.
finalizing the actual name of the business. I think that was sort of like, oh, what am I going to call it? And am I good with that? Is this workable? That sort of thing. But once I mean, tell me, what does IBM mean, right?
Yeah.
Uh, like, what does it stand for? I mean, sure, we can get into what IBM stands for as an organization. I'm not talking about their mission or vision. I'm talking about the actual name, right?
Yeah.
So you can call yourself anything. It doesn't matter. Don't get hung up
What's
on
in
the
a name, as they say, right?
yeah. I mean, like
Yeah.
obviously there is some relevance and there is an underlying tone and buyer persona that you want to represent as far as your organization at large and how that communicates with the world and who you are as a business
Yeah.
or what you're trying to create and how you want to portray that as you work towards creating your brand and marketing your services or product into the marketplace. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a name, right? Like, don't
Oh,
get
I
hung
agree.
up on all those minutia details, right?
Yeah, you just got to get out there and you got to put your foot in the water and just learn to get comfortable with the being uncomfortable, right? And
Yeah.
that's the whole business generation risk is you just have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable and be able to put yourself in a situation to be successful, right? If you don't put yourself in that situation, you'll never get there. The one thing we didn't talk about as it relates to starting your own business and all that other good stuff is and you touched upon it, the whole planning aspect of it. Most businesses, a lot of businesses start with no business plan, which I think is quite fine. Like our business, we've been in business for several years now, and we don't have a business plan formally. We kind of just go with the flow of what our customers either bring to our table or that challenge us with. We very much have a dynamic business plan. We have an overarching business objective in a business goal, but our business plan pieces is very much dynamic, right? It should be a dynamic business plan that changes, because that's the whole idea of a business plan. It's not a one-time shot where you write it and you put it in a binder and refer back to it in 10 years and say, oh yeah, we did those things. Cool. No, it's something that you're constantly iterating, that's the word, I think, updating, making better, improving upon, changing direction, taking advantage of opportunities. So, as a business creator, if that's the path that you choose as an entrepreneur, you have to constantly be looking for new opportunities and constantly changing your direction and focus to be intentional on what you're going after. By no means, though, do I think that chasing every squirrel that comes across your tree is a great strategy, because that'll burn you out quick. You need to have an objective that drives you, but then all these other different pieces that help enable that drive. There are riches in the niches, they say. So if you can really specialize and focus on a particular area, group, business, opportunity, or sector, you can be more successful. Mm-hmm. But as you start to learn in business, if you have that leeway to do so, you're definitely going to start to benefit from being open and flexible. And one thing I'll talk about as well, I want to beat a dead horse on this one. But as you're setting yourself up to be in business, you always have to have that mind frame that your time is money and that you can't trade time for money. So you need to be a little bit more intentional on how you invest the time that you're spending, especially in the early days. And especially if it's a side hustle. If you have your 9 to 5 and you want to do a 5 to 9 just to get yourself going, which I recommend, by the way. I do recommend dipping your toe in the water with your passion 9 to 5, 5 to 9 if you can. And if that starts to create the wealth and create the revenue that you desire, then the transition becomes easy.
That's funny. I read something on social today, oddly enough, because we didn't really plan for this episode, but nonetheless, I think we're gonna be able to deliver. But it said it was something related to millennials and identifying their actual annual income. That read something like I don't even know what the percentage is, but 72% of all statistics are made up anyway. So it said there was a majority of millennials that identified that they would be much happier making $40,000 a year doing something they love instead of $100,000 a year doing something that was mundane, boring, and they didn't have any passion for. So, it's something that's fine that you can, figure out that there's a void in the market, or if you're going to be bringing a new sort of solution to fill that void. But if it's not something that resonates with who you are as a person and is not part of your makeup, it doesn't make sense. Don't start something because you see something as an opportunity, because it'll quickly fade, right?
Yeah, don't go sell hand wipes because we're in a pandemic, right? Like if that's not what you're set up to do, or you can add value to that, it's the old Apple mentality. They didn't invent the personal computer, they didn't invent the smartphone, but they improved upon it, right? So
there's going to be some Bitcoin banter here, or some individuals that are coming in and just quick hitters, right? They're going to be like, well, there's an opportunity, let's seize the market. We need PPE. Boom. Let's go find it, source it, get the cheapest buck, bring it to market, drop it, and move away, because it's the ship. Right?
Funny enough, so speaking of millennials, speaking of Bitcoin, so I was talking to my brother-in-law over the weekend, and one of his good buddies from university is a Bitcoin guy, like a cryptocurrency guy. So he's coming on the pot. We're going to get him on. Like, I'm going to talk to my brother-in-law and get this dude on, because he runs an ETF for Bitcoin, which again, exchange traded funds, Bitcoin, it's basically they trade a bunch of different coins on the stock exchanges or the coin exchanges. So I'm going to try to book him on to talk about that topic because I'm interested in it. I'm sure some of the people tuning into our podcast will be interested in learning a little bit about cryptocurrencies and the future of money, if that's a thing. But to close this off, and then what I want to do, because I think one of the next episodes we should tease for folks that will add a ton of value is to talk about that digital marketing journey from when you created the business to what you did next to have it rank and to have it show up and to all the other digital words that I can't think of that are relevant when you're starting a business. Or we can go into it now. What do you feel like?
I don't even think we're there yet. There's so many other things that needed to get created, right? Like you got a name, great. Now what? Where's your logo? What's your brand colors, right? Like how are you?
So what do people need to do to think about that? Like what would you recommend if I had to sit down with a blank piece of paper and think about those three things: my colors, my logo. I have a business name because I'm uncreative. I call it J. Rule and Sons. I'm not a creative dude, so I pick a boring name, but I can always change it because when you incorporate, you can always have operating as. So there's always an opportunity there. But what do I need to think of? What are like three things that I need to think of if I'm creating a brand for myself and I'm creating a presence that we'll talk about pushing it out, like when we get that brand in the marketplace. But what are three initial starting things that you would recommend people think about when they're sitting down?
That's a great question. I mean, it's really just going to depend on the individual, right? As far as what they see their priorities are. Like everyone's going to need, you're going to need your logo. You're going to need you're going to have to identify what colors are going to represent the company or the business, right? And there's brand guidelines that you need to follow, whether or not you're going to delve into. And most of the people probably won't even know what their mission or vision statement is going to be, right?
Yeah.
They're just sort of getting to filling out the details. To be honest, I think for the most part, many entrepreneurs won't even have those details already ironed out, right? I think that's a later stage in the conversation, as you would attest to, considering that you've been operating as an entrepreneur for several years now, and you're just recently having those types of discussions, right? So,
agreed.
I think there's a value to just executing and getting things up. If you're just interested in doing it, if you're a DIY guy, which many people are, right? And
yeah,
I don't want to stereotype, but if you're a hands-on person and you're somewhat tech savvy, you can do all these things yourself, right?
100%.
Or you hire a professional and you invest a little bit, and there's certain things that you want to concentrate on and you outsource in order for you to help scale faster, right? And
agreed. Yeah,
it's where a lot of times individuals get hung up on is the minute details that they may not have the expertise on, or they may think that they have the expertise on, but they're spending so much time on things that they're not good at. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I hear exactly where you're coming from. Like I'll tell a quick story. So when I started doing more activity at my business, I got to the point where I was getting very far behind on my invoicing. I wasn't good at billing customers for the work I was doing or the services I was consuming. I was just happy enough to have enough money to pay the people that I bought services from their bill, right? So I was happy that I had the $5 or $6 grand to pay them, but then I was not taking advantage of the fact that customers owed me money.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started to look at an operations person to say, you know what, like this business, we can run lean 100%, but I need somebody who's in the office, who's diligent, who's organized, who can take on the task of making sure we get our money, right? Chasing that bag, as they say, right? Because as an entrepreneur, you realize what you're good at and you realize where you play to your passions. And unfortunately, at times you need to wear multiple hats and do lots of different things, but you really got to know when you spend more time doing things that somebody could easily do in half the time you do. And again, it goes back to that trading time for money argument, right? So good point. Hire professionals where needed, make sure you get a lawyer. We were about to invest in another company, and we got their investment documents, and I sent it to my lawyer, and he basically said, I don't know who wrote this. It seems like they did it themselves.
Right.
And they went to like 1-800-lawyer or something like that. He goes, this is terrible. Don't sign it. And we didn't sign it. And we ended up going through with this deal that we were looking at doing, because we just spent a little bit of money, got our lawyer to look at it before we signed off on it, and realized, we saved ourselves $62,000, 60 something thousand US with an investment that we were about to make. So you got to be smart at times when it comes to these things, because hiring a professional is always recommended, especially legal professionals as a small business. One thing as part of the resources that we'll deliver to you that is in there is they provide a lot of the articles of incorporation, and they do also, some of these companies that do incorporations or help with business startup provide you with a package. You pay them a year and you get access to all these resources. You get access to lawyers, access to make amendments to your contract. You get access to logo creation. You get access to digital marketing stuff like Google AdWord recommendations and some of the other things that you would need as a small business owner. So there's a lot of, again, as we started at the top, a lot of resources out there that you can really leverage to get your business off the ground, and take the focus, again, to your point, Neil, take the focus away from the administrative aspects of it that you may not have a good handle on, and just focus on delivering the core of the business that you got into business to do. So
Yeah.
leverage the tools, man.
Yeah, 100%. I think the one caveat for this whole discussion, if I could suggest to the audience, is
Yes, sir.
actually brush up on your sales. It doesn't matter, regardless. Like if it's a product, it's a service. If it's a product and you're looking sort of not being face forwarding, just sort of like you mentioned, drop shipping, or let's just say if we're looking at e-commerce and we're going to be sort of operating behind the scenes, there's still a customer experience.
So brush up on your sales, on how you deal with people, Neil, or like, what do you mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one component of it. Obviously, if you're looking at, B2B sales or B2C, business to consumer, you're dealing with people, right? It's the most unpredictable variable in this whole equation, right? But not only that, I mean, you have to sell your product or your services to someone else. And if you don't know how to sell, I don't care what you're offering, you're not going to be able to execute. You're not going to be able to progress. You've got a business and you're there. That's it.
Yeah. Like you meet a lot of, this happens in the tech space a lot, right? Like you meet these brilliant engineers and change makers who really have a great mousetrap they've built, a great solution, but they're terrible salespeople. They don't follow up with customers. They don't really know how to prospect properly. They're unfortunately not able to get over the hump of inventor to the point of business owner, entrepreneur, licensee, patent owner, stuff along those lines. There's a void there. And again, if you're again in the entrepreneur space and you're looking to start a business, run a business, be part of a business, there may be an opportunity to partner up with people who lack the business acumen to go and do things once you get that experience, right? And you almost look at the startup world and a lot of the venture capitalists and the angel investors and a lot of people in that sphere. That's what they do. They take people who have great ideas and really understand their product or the service they developed and make them into a business, right? Like a product, I've invented this product, which is great, but it's not a business. Like selling a pen or inventing this pen that does this thing is not a business. If you're a connoisseur of Dragon's Den or Shark Tank or any of those shows where people come and they pitch their ideas and their inventions, sometimes their ideas and inventions are just products. They're not a business. They're something that you can license, like a new way to do ab crunches. Well, you could just license that to Bowflex and then make licensing revenue. You don't need to start a business on, tight band waist ab trainers. Like you can license that to somebody. So people get a little bit of that hardcore reality to say that your product or your idea is not really a business. It's just an idea that can latch on to something else. So as a business owner, sometimes you get into that situation. But if you can sell, then maybe there's some other aspects that you can look at to improve your revenue opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you have to, right? And if you
Sales is
can't,
key.
then you're setting up your online channels to make sure that it's designed effectively for
Yeah.
the website to make those sales for you, right?
Yeah. We didn't even talk about online sales. Like that's a whole other podcast, a whole other ball game.
Yeah.
Like, cause again, I'm not fully experienced on it, so we'd have to be an expert in, but it's a whole other world, that may even become more comfortable for people who don't like sales, but like the product marketing and the sourcing and the creation aspect of a business selling online. You don't have to see anybody. You need to sell, you need to position yourself right and be in the right places to get the right eyeballs. But the customer service aspect is keyboard, right?
Still an aspect though, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Like you
tell me
said,
the last time that
customers have the money.
you ordered something online and you got a terrible experience, right? Or it wasn't what you had ordered and then you tried to return it. Talk to me about that type of experience. So you don't have to be, you can be the ghost, right? That's not a problem, but you
Yep.
still have to have experience as far as the CX, right?
Yep.
Um,
Agreed.
and identifying sort of what the process is for you to fine tune it. Because even though you're a faceless organization, you still have to write the words in order to respond to those customer feedbacks. And I'll tell you one thing, we're talking about keyboard warriors, somebody hates or is dissatisfied with after they've opened up their wallet and made a purchase, you can be sure in today's day and age that they're going to be sort of telling everybody and anybody that how disgruntled they're going to be. The first thing they need is going to turn to Twitter or they're going to turn to Google and they're going to do a review and they're going to sort of put you on blast, right? So
Yeah, man. That's a
you
huge
have,
aspect of the world today in commerce online. That's a whole, like I said, it's a whole other conversation set and how to position yourself correctly online to get those positive reviews and positive feedback and what you need to do to keep customers coming back for more or satisfy them on the first opportunity you get. Wanted to read this. This popped up on my feed today. And I don't know if it's customer centric, but it's a good quote nonetheless. I'll read it. Never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. I like that. I really like that. I'll let that marinate for a bit.
read it one more time.
Never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and then they will beat you with experience.
So what do you think they're referring to there?
I think it's lowering yourself to
Sorry,
make...
is that an anonymous quote or is that
No, that's Mark Twain. Mark Twain.
Oh.
I think the interpretation of that is you lower yourself down or get yourself into mudslinging with somebody and you really lower yourself to a person who is, again, speaking of comments and feedback and trolls and all that stuff online, you're playing into the game of what they're trying to get you to play into. And as soon as you play into that game, you lose because you don't have the experience of playing that way. I don't know. What's your interpretation of something like that?
I'd agree 100%. I mean, like, I think if you take that quote literally and look at stooping down to someone else's level without identifying sort of the root cause of what their issue may be per se.
Yeah.
Um, Listen, at the end of the day, like I said before, people are going to be the X factor or the variable in this whole equation that is just going to throw you for a loop. You can't, right? I don't care how long you've been in business, how successful you are. You talk to anyone, and whether they're working a job or they're an entrepreneur, people are the one variable that's never the constant, right? And there's all types of different personalities out there. So you just have to be, I think you just have to be nimble. If we're going to walk away with sort of the up on this, as far as the key takeaway, I think you have to be nimble enough to be water, my friend, is what Bruce Lee said, right?
Hey,
water. So
it's an unstoppable force, right?
Well, it's not only that, you have to be fluid, right? You have to move with and who you're working with per se. So I know you had a checklist, Jay. So I want to go back to that because I
Yep.
know the resource, and I think the big takeaway for our audience is going to be the resources here if they're going down this rabbit hole. So owner, OWNR, is the one that we pointed out to. I think it's owner.com. And
Yep.
they have a relationship with RBC. I know if you set up in a corporation, you can actually get a couple hundred back once you've gone through that process and registered and filled out the paperwork, open up an account. We're not sponsored by RBC, by the way, or owner. So all of these resources are sort of just things that we found helpful. Jay's
Correct.
had the privilege of opening up a number of different ventures in his time, and he's been able to sort of investigate other options that are available to there. So
Yep.
owner's one, and we'll have links in the description and sort of wherever you're consuming this in order for it to be a valuable resource for you. What's the others?
Incorporate or Incorp Masters is another one, .com.
Okay.
And then incorporationpros.com or .ca. So all those three are Canadian. The other one that jumped out at me was this company called Gust. It's US based, but the reason why they jumped out at me is because they had a corporation as a service offering. So what it basically is they create a portal for you as a business owner, as a business operator, where all the stuff that you need is there. So you need to make an amendment, boom, make an amendment. Adding new directors, you're looking at changing around your ownership table, or the I can't remember what the term is, where you reallocate shares. So you're looking to turn that around. You can do it, boom, on the site. You want to register a second business name, or you want to incorporate something different. It's all within the package offering they have. So it's gust.com. And they're really promoting a new way of managing your business as an organic entity. You know, it's something that's always living, versus creating a document, moving on. US based though, so I don't know if there's a Canadian equivalent. There may be, but
I think that's a good point that you made up as far as like the seamless execution and being sort of a one-stop portal. And I think that's what I love the most about Owner is that everything's nice and neat, and even the documents that you have, once you sign them electronically, it's stored in your account. Speaking to the point that you made before about the HST, went down that rabbit hole, had to pay another set of money in order to get the HST number. But I figured, you know what, I'm in the administrative mindset right now. Let me just get all the paperwork that I need to get off my plate, so that I'm not referring to something else later on. Will I make XYZ amount on this side hustle after the fact? Who knows? But you know what? It's done. And now whatever expenses that I have for the business, then I can sort of line them up in the right columns. So when it comes to year end next year, I'm having a proper conversation with professionals that are looking into this one, right? So no, I think
taxes and paying them, I know way more than I should know on it, just based on some personal missteps in the taxation and paying of taxation space. We won't get into that, but there's definitely, you learn. I learn sometimes through missteps and wrong turns of things that.
Well, again, that's another episode in its entirety. I think what we'll do is we'll reach out. I've got a couple people on in that sort of that wear that hat, and
perfect.
Got his master's in accounting. So I think he'll be able to bring a lot of value to the table for individuals that are struggling or looking for opportunities to maximize their earnings or adjust their financial buckets, for lack of a better term.
You got it. So I think, Neil, we've hopefully added a lot of value for folks. Talked about some stuff we're passionate about, gave people some ideas around business pursuits. And I think one thing I'll close with is I did have 5 steps, and I'll go through them quickly now before we conclude. Step number 1 is start with your idea. The problem you're looking to solve, the thing that you think can add the most value to the world, that you can add value to yourself. The structure, how you want to have that business laid out. And then once your structure is laid out and you've established your value, just get a mini plan together. It doesn't have to be extensive. It's a little bit of a plan of attack, things that you want to do, maybe even a to-do list, things that are important for you in the first little while from a business and market and customer acquisition perspective. So I really call that your sales plan. And then once you've done your sales plan, get somebody to help you validate it to make sure that it's something that really holds water and that you could push out into the marketplace and start to capture customers and capture revenue and make sales. Then start looking at your tools. Like, what are you going to use to manage all this activity you're creating? Whether it's your invoicing tool, things like FreshBooks, which I highly recommend from a small business perspective, Canadian-based company, or it's something like getting organized with a bank account and a proper domain email. So get all your tools set up, make sure your structure is good, make sure that you're buttoned down there, and then do all your government-related taxation things. Get your HST number, get your business number along those lines. Then you should start to be able to operate at an optimal level with the tools. And then the last piece is make sure you have a team or a set of experts that you can go to, or those experts can be resources that you can access when you have questions. So that's my list.
Layer it up. I would add to that to maybe set up a postal box to move away, because again, if you're just starting out, you're probably operating out of home, maybe, unless you have the luxury of being able to afford an office place.
This wonderful place I'm in, which is closing soon.
That's another topic, but if that's the case also, I don't know, what are your thoughts as far as your personal cell phone versus a business line?
A business line is recommended if you are supporting customers. So customers are calling you directly for support, or if you intend on having people help you out. So, so I have a cell phone, of course, and I have a business number that I've created through, again, another free tool that I can send people. And that business number is an IVR. So it's what's the acronym for an IVR? It basically just routes your call. So you call the main number, press 1 for sales, 2 for support, 3 for billing. And then once you press those, it goes to myself or my partner. Simple. So you can develop that as part of your initial establishing of your tools to get yourself a toll-free number as well. Like we have a toll-free number. It's 1833 M to M IoT. That's what it is. Which is like 426 2626 or something like that. So those type of things are important. What's that?
Shameless plug. Right?
Hey, I don't think anybody's going to call me. If they call me, it's fine. Sell you some wireless data. Get on board. How many SIM cards you want? Anyways.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Cool. So we're going to edit this little sort of banter back and forth, but for viewing pleasure, as we close out this episode number 3, hopefully you found some value in today's episode, where we're talking all things entrepreneurship and starting up a business here in Canada. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this video. Hit that notification bell to ensure that you're going to be kept up to date, and that anything that we release onward is going to be delivered on your viewing device of your pleasure. For those checking in on our podcast, be sure to comment, send us a DM. Our contact information will be in the channel, wherever you do get your podcasts, and make sure that you reach out with any ideas, topics, or suggestions for improvement, as we value any feedback that's out there. Jay, any closing remarks?
No, you're a good host. Did you have that written down, or is that just off
Not at all? No, this is just years of expertise.
Years of experience. No, closing, I will say thank you for investing your time with us, and we hope you got value from the time that you did invest. Thank you.
Awesome. One final note for myself. I think for those that are in this stage of lack of execution, or thinking that they're going to fail, or uncertainty, or uncomfortableness, or delays because you've been, thinking and pondering year over year, or day over day, or hour over hour, depending on how your life is set up, just do it. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to fail? Okay, great. You're out a couple $100. Fantastic. You're not going anywhere anyways. So just think about it as a couple of dinners out with the wife or the husband, and see what happens, right? Worst case scenario, you succeed.
Worst case scenario, you succeed. You should have that as a quote, Neil.
That's a great one. There you go.
Worst case scenario, you succeed.
I'm gonna hashtag it right now.
There you go. All right.
Okay, brother.